the gospel this morning. If you brought a Bible with you, I would invite you to make your way to the gospel according to Matthew. We'll be sharing from the 5th chapter this morning, and I'll be sharing from the Common English Bible. If your translation is a little different from this one, if you brought a Bible with you, or if you're grabbing the Pew Bible, which I believe is pretty consistently New Revised Standard throughout the sanctuary. If the words on your page are a little different from the words on mine, that is all right. I am not reading from the Greek. You wouldn't want me to. But somewhere in between the words on your page and the words on mine, there is a word that God will speak to us together. A reading from Matthew. You are the salt of the earth. But if salt loses its saltiness, how will it become salty again? It's good for nothing except to be thrown away and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world. A city on top of a hill can't be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they put it on top of a lampstand, and it shines on all who are in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before people, so they can see the good things you do and praise your Father who is in heaven. Don't even begin to think that I have come to do away with the law and the prophets. I haven't come to do away with them, but to fulfill them. I say to you very seriously that as long as heaven and earth exist, neither the smallest letter nor even the smallest stroke of a pen will be erased from the law until everything there becomes a reality. Therefore, whoever ignores one of the least of these commands and teaches others to do the same will be called the lowest in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps these commands and teaches people to keep them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. I say to you that unless your righteousness is greater than the righteousness of the legal experts and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Friends, hear what the Spirit is saying to God's people. You may be seated. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, Lord, my rock and my redeemer. This reading is rich. It's full. It's complex. It's also, like so many of our biblical texts, potentially so familiar that it's difficult to understand. It's your spouse telling you something that they discovered today in the same tone of voice that you've always heard, so that it completely fails to stick to any collection point in your mind. These can be some of the hardest sermons. So I'm not going to start at the beginning with the more familiar and kind of easier to palate stuff. I'm going to begin where the concept is the most difficult, the thickest, where it seems to disagree the most with a lot of other texts, particularly some that we've encountered together recently. Jesus says, don't even begin to think that I've come to do away with the law and the prophets. I haven't come to do away with them, but to fulfill them. My inclination in general, and I say this over and over again to the point where you all are probably beginning to think of me a broken record. My inclination is to read the law and all the prophets through the lens of what Jesus in Matthew's gospel, the same gospel we're reading today, calls the greatest commandment. And I say it to you often enough, you probably recited it by heart if you hadn't been able to before. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your mind. You must love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, to my mind, any behavior that we do that isn't loving God, that isn't loving our neighbor, and that isn't loving ourselves is sinful behavior. It doesn't matter what is or is not written. is it loving? Is it evidence of walking humbly, loving mercy, and doing justice, as the same pair of commandments is summed up in Micah? If it isn't loving, it's sin. And for me, that abolishes the old law in favor of a much simpler, but much more difficult to follow law of love. But then, Jesus goes and says something like this, and I just don't understand. And this passage doesn't get any clearer or more palatable from this point. I mean, it really bugs me. It deeply disturbs me that Jesus begins to talk about hierarchy in the kingdom. Now, we in our churches, we can be very fond of hierarchy sometimes. We have people who are well respected and well loved, and we have some people who are seem a little less important and less involved, and we kind of tend to keep that sometimes. We definitely do that in the society around us and in our political structures. But when Jesus says that whoever would be great in the kingdom must be servant of all, that ought to be an equalizer, not a means of ranking disciples. But maybe, and this is what I'm going to have to lean on, maybe Jesus isn't presenting the disciples and the crowd gathering on the side of a mountain with a literal, exact model of the kingdom. Maybe Jesus is using the tools of public discourse to his advantage. Maybe he's engaging the audience with metaphor, hyperbole. Wouldn't be the first time. It won't be the last. But maybe Jesus is facing a crowd that's as diverse as the actual population of greater Judea. Maybe it's not just the disciples that are his, and the disciples that are John's, normal people around the local towns who are there. Maybe there are some of those nasty scribes, Pharisees, those temple elites who are there listening to him too. Don't you all choose your words more carefully when important people are around? Shouldn't I be more aware of my language when, say, the district superintendent visits? Or when the bishop shows up? Or maybe I shouldn't, but I probably am. I'm keenly aware when my colleagues happen to show up at the service, or some of my retired colleagues. My language changes. So maybe what we hear Jesus saying here is, of course, I'm not here to do away with the law and the prophets. Not one step, not one ink blot can disappear from the law until all this goes away. That ink and that papyrus will outlast all of us here. They'll outlast Rome. They'll outlast humanity itself. No, I'm not here to abolish the law. I'm here to fulfill it. The law and the prophets, which Jesus says later can be summed up in love, are fulfilled in Jesus. A person they can touch and feel and chase around the sanctuary is the fulfillment of Torah. In fact, the fulfillment of the whole Tanakh, all those ancient Hebrew scriptures. A person. Jesus embodies the scriptures. That's not the same as memorizing. It's not the same as just following. It's not the same even as studying. Jesus is the Word. And not just the logos of creation, but the rhema, the spoken, communicative, linguistic word that comprises all the witness to the work of God in the world. Jesus is the Word, and Jesus is all the words. And that is our inheritance. We who are baptized into siblinghood with Jesus, children of God, we are inheritors of His glory. The power and the word of creation and the fulfillment of all the witness of God resides in us. Now we have an uncanny knack for denying that part of ourselves in favor of our more selfish, self-serving, and holistically destructive behaviors. But if we can learn to deny those evil tendencies that we have, to let God throw them to the wind as useless chaff, as inedible husks, and all that would be left is what's holy. That is the process of sanctification. It's not about having all the answers, about being the smartest person in the room. It's not about how hard we try or how busy we make ourselves. Paul says, if I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels but have not love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast but do not have love, I gain nothing. Y'all, we can set everything else aside and just shine. You are the light of the world. You're not some camera taking pictures of all the things that are illuminated. You are not the holder of the flashlight shining into dark places. You are the light of the world. You, with the love of God, with the word of creation living inside you, are the light. It's not your job to see, it's your job to light. Let your light shine before people so they can see the good things that you do and praise your Father who's in heaven. That's how simple a task is. Don't worry about the details. Let God make you completely transparent so that the divine light refracts clearly through you. Let your light shine. Illuminate the world. Light and salt. Banish the darkness. Make the world beautiful. Make the world delicious. Let God make the world better through you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.